So good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining our meeting today. So today will be the last meeting of the Bird Habitat lecture series. So and it is going to be about artificial habitat. So I'll be doing it. I told it Savith was going to do it, but he had a problem with the time, so I'll be doing the meeting lecture today. So let's just see what is an artificial ecosystem. So artificial habitat is a type of ecosystem or habitat that is built by humans, because humans are the ones normally build new things. So most of these habitats are not pleasant like other ecosystems, and yes, that's true because it's not naturally made. So normally animals prefer naturally made ecosystems, but these are made by humans for their preferences. So most animals doesn't like it, but there are few that are adapted to these conditions and now coexist with humans. And because of that, yes, there's few animals who's living with us in cities and thus in artificial habitats. These habitats have low biodiversity. Low means very low. So what are the types of artificial habitats? So there are two main types of artificial habitats. There are the one called the man-made reserves, but that one is a bit hard, and you won't find those normally, and they're mostly made for scientific purposes rather than they're made for other purposes. So the main two, so the one of the most common is the city, or it was also known as metropolis. Metropolis means a large city. So the other type is human settlement areas. So let's go on. So let's see cities and metropolises and what animals we can see in these. So what is a city or metropolis? City or metropolis is a very busy place with many cities, like constructions of buildings, people going to work and other work. And it's also very large. Sometimes these cities expand to a large area. Maybe they may be small. They may be sometimes just extend some few kilometers, or they might cover some large areas. So these and I told you that there are construction buildings, people going here and there, many vehicles. So because of that, there's lots of pollution. You know, there's lots of pollution in cities. The most common type of pollution in cities is the air pollution, because people use vehicles and construction workers use cranes and stuff, and you need to burn fossil fuels for those. And because of that, there's lots of air pollution is at its peak in these areas. And because tree growth is also scarce, because people cut those trees down so they can make buildings and roads and stuff. So water pollution is also a bit high in these areas. So what kind of birds can you see in these cities or metropolises? So cities and metropolises, as I told you about earlier, they are very harsh. They have harsh conditions. So uh, only the best adaptable birds can be seen in these areas. So the family of Corvidae, also known as family of crows, are the one of most successful birds in these areas, because crows, they are normally hardy animals. They can eat anything they want, and plus they are actually very intelligent compared to other birds. Actually, it's found that crows have actually some have higher intelligence than that of some apes. So it means they are very intelligent. So that's why crows can be seen in many numbers in cities. I'm pretty sure you know that. And if you take another bird that you can see in here is domestic pigeon. It's actually a descendant of the rock pigeon, Columba livia. Now, you might think the one we can see in the cities are also the rock pigeon, but actually it's wrong. We can't see rock pigeons that much. They may look like the rock pigeons, the real true rock pigeons. The reason is because there are descendants of them, so they looks very similar. They have the colorings of same coloring sometimes. But the difference is the domestic pigeons have adapted to live with humans. They can eat human foods, they can stay in human houses, and most likely they can coexist with us. While the true rock pigeon, the true wild ancestor of them, they prefer to stay their wild nature. They like to stay in non-urban areas. If you want to, and they eat things like wild grain and insects in the wild. So they are not like the one we see in cities. The domestic pigeon is actually some groups of those rock pigeons who have adapted to live with us. That took over a century for them to adaptation. If you want to see a rock pigeon, a true rock pigeon, I think you should visit the Pigeon Island. That is the best place to see the true rock pigeon. Now the other type is sparrows. House sparrows are a type of bird that you can see almost everywhere. Sparrows, they are also like the crows, and plus their size is small, so they don't need that much food or other requirements. And they also can, as a small, they can nest in small areas, don't need that much space to make a large nests. So they are also somewhat successful in these areas. And as I told you earlier, these birds can withstand most of the harsh conditions of the cities. The crows can eat almost anything, and they're intelligent. And rock pigeon is also, they can also, the domestic pigeon, sorry, not rock pigeon, the domestic pigeon also have adapted to eat human foods. So they have also adapted to these harsh conditions and to easily coexist with humans. And this domestic pigeon eating human food is not good. They might has a harmful side too. So these are the most common ones. So this bird in the rightmost side of this slide is the sparrow, house sparrow. These are small birds. They nest in almost everywhere. If you go to city and observe well, I'm pretty sure you'll see one of these. And this is the domestic pigeon, and they are very much similar to the rock pigeon. They have almost the same coloring. But these birds, domestic pigeon is more adapted to us than the rock pigeon. Oh, sorry. The one in the leftmost of this slide is the type of crow. This is a house crow. So there are many types of crows, like the large-billed crow, the raven. This one in this picture is called the house crow. You can see them in huge flocks in cities. If you go and look, I'm pretty sure you're going to observe very well, you'll see them easily. So let's look at human settlements. So what is a human settlement? Human settlements are places that us humans have resided in. Means we build our homes and permanently reside in those areas. Stay. There are two types of human settlements. One is the urban human settlements, and the other is the rural human settlements. So urban human settlements could be are in cities, inside cities. So they are their habitats is more like that of the city, as we talked earlier. So the rural human settlements, if you take villages, they are the best examples. They are villages that exist far away from cities and such, and in a forest. Those are rural human settlements. So we're gonna talk about the rural human settlements, not the urban one, because we talked about the uh, cities and metropolises earlier, and urban human settlements is almost the same. So there's no point of talking that again. So let's see what birds we can see in rural human settlements. So now, species in crow family is also abundant in these areas too, because they have their food supply given by the humans, and they like to they can easily get them because they are easy pickings for them. So you also have a chance of seeing wild birds in small numbers, not in large numbers, in small numbers, because rural areas might have higher forest cover than that of urban areas. So wild birds sometimes, yeah, you can see them. The best examples are bulbuls. The most common type of bulbul is the red-vented bulbul in Sri Lanka. You'll most likely see this bird. I'm pretty sure they also come to our home gardens too, if you are living in somewhat rural area. Uh, and the other types of wild birds includes the other members of the pigeon family, not except except the domestic pigeon. Other members include green imperial, like members like the green imperial pigeon, the Sri Lankan green pigeon, the wood pigeon, emerald dove, spotted dove, like birds like that. And the thrush family. Thrush family includes birds that they includes ground dwelling birds. Ground dwelling birds mean birds that stay. Uh, it's a group of ground dwelling birds. Ground dwelling birds means birds that find food and sometimes nest in the ground. So there are types of thrushes that you can see in rural home gardens, like the orange-headed thrush, which is a migrant bird. If you look carefully these days, if you look carefully in your home gardens about in December, you'll most likely see one if you are living in some rural area. So the other one is the other thrush family. If you take other thrushes, there are the pied thrush. It's more likely in the hill country, and Indian blackbird. It's also in the hill country. And the wagtail family. So wagtail family is a type of bird family that is that consists of small birds. Their size is small. They are called wagtails because they wag their tails. So they might wag their tails in different ways. They might wag them horizontally or vertically. It doesn't matter. Those birds are called wagtails. So the most common, if you want to see, if you most likely you'll see the forest wagtail because it's very recognizable, and it also like to stay on ground. In if ground means in forest cover areas. The other types of wagtails mostly stays near the water bodies. Like the gray wagtails, they like to go on lotus petals, not lotus petal, lotus leaves. Sorry. And like the white wagtail who like to stay in the shores of a water body, like that. The forest wagtail, but the forest wagtail, they like to stay in forests. So it is also a common migrant bird. It's a very common one. It's more common than that orange-headed thrush I told you earlier. And so this wagtail you can also see in your home gardens if you carefully observe your homes these days, because it's a migrant bird and it's the migratory season now. And in forest wagtail is a migrant that comes early in the migrating season to Sri Lanka. So these are some pictures of them. So this is a brown-breasted flycatcher. It's a bird of the flycatcher family. Flycatcher family consists of small birds that go on eating insects, mostly flying insects. So there are two types of flycatchers in the flycatching family: the New World flycatchers, which includes the Asian paradise flycatcher and the Ceylon flycatcher. They're both species with different two races. You might know them as Sudurediora and Sigurora and Singal. They are new world flycatchers. Now there are old world flycatchers. So this brown-breasted flycatcher includes to that old world flycatcher group. Old world flycatchers are much more primitive. There are some differences. They easily differ them, but I'm not gonna tell them here. I'll tell them in a future meeting. So this brown-breasted flycatcher, it is also a migrant bird. You will also see this bird. It can be seen island-wide, no specific place. You'll also be able to see this bird in your home gardens if you look carefully. This bird is a bit camouflaged because it's brownish. Feathers make him be camouflaged in dry leaves and most likely to stay in open branches near the ground level, about And then there is the orange-breasted green pigeon. This one is mostly can be seen in dry zone in Sri Lanka. So you can easily see them in dry zone rural areas. You'll also easily see them in national parks if you go, but we are talking about artificial environments here, so we won't talk about national parks. Rain-breasted green pigeon can be easily identified, but they're a bit camouflaged in the environment in trees because they are green, as the name suggests. This picture shows a female. The male has orange-colored breast, which is beautiful and easily recognizable. So this one is not a migrant; it's a resident. Resident means that does not migrate to other countries, but also can be seen in our country and other countries. And this bird is the orange-headed thrush I described to you earlier, the one that you can easily see. Now this is the Indian Pita. I'm pretty sure you all of you have heard this bird as avicha. Yes, this bird is the bird that is known as the avicha. So this bird too also come to our home gardens if it's a rural area. It also comes to some urban areas, but not, but very rarely. Oh, sorry. So the Indian Pita is a common migrant to some areas. So Indian Pita is very easily recognizable because its structure is, it's like a round, it's like a spear. Its body is spherical, and plus its body, it also have short tail feathers. Tail feathers are not elongated. In this thrush you can see the tail feathers elongated, but in this Pita it's not. And the Pita has a yellowish belly and green colored wings. Yes, its wings are green. You cannot see it in this picture because this bird is facing forward. So that's it for today. I know it's a small one because artificial habitat is not that kind of a big one, and there's not much birds to discuss in it. That's why it was shorter than expected. So thank you everyone for joining this meeting and all the bird habitat lecture series meetings that we had earlier. So this lecture will mark the end of that lecture series. So we'll go on doing other lectures like endemic birds, resident birds, bird photography one. I'll do another bird photography one. So I guess you will join those future meetings too. So if you have questions, please ask them now, or you can direct them into the chat box. So there's one question: what are the wild mammalian species seen in artificial habitats? So there are lots of actually mammals are a bit common in artificial habitats rather than birds, because mammals actually in evolution are better adaptable species. So if you take mammalian species, you can see the fishing cat, also known as Handundivya and Single. I'll show you a picture. Wait. Wait. Okay, I'll share the screen. Wait a minute. So this is the fishing cat. It's actually a native. It's this cat. This cat species is native to South Asia. Only can be seen in India and Sri Lanka. Yeah, I know. That's why it's an endangered species. But you can see them in Colombo at night time, not in daytime. They are nocturnal creatures. It has been reported that these are fishing cats, so they like to, as their name says, they like to eat fish. They are also one of the few cats that's not afraid of water. Yeah, this cat is not afraid of water. They like water. So these cats swim to find their fish, and it also eats other aquatic creatures like frogs and such. So there have been reports in Colombo that these fishing cats have been fishing from ponds that humans have made for to beautify their houses, and these has been reported that these cats have been stealing fish because those fish are easy picking for them. So this is a one type of uh, wild mammalian species that you can see in artificial habitats of Sri Lanka. So if you take another one, I know it's a bit surprising. It will be surprising to you, but that is a leopard. Uh, I'm pretty sure you know what the leopard is. Oh, sorry, this is the leopard. So the leopard is the largest type of cat in Sri Lanka. It's the biggest cat type in Sri Lanka. It's the Sri Lankan leopard subspecies that we can see in Sri Lanka. So this Sri Lankan leopard is actually, these guys actually comes to see the Nuwara city, not other places, but in Nuwara. At night time, these at the edge of this, because the Nuwara city is bounded to the Pitruthalagala sanctuary, and that's a very rich place of leopards, wild leopards, and these leopards come to these border area of the city to take easy prey like domestic dogs, domestic chicken and stuff. So they've also been reported in Sri Lanka going in cities more only in Nuwara though to date. Another wild mammalian species is the Indian porcupine, also in Sinhala is known as Ittava. Yes, this one can be commonly seen in rural areas, very common. And yes, it's a very dangerous one too. So these ones also been reported in Colombo and also in huge numbers in rural areas of Sri Lanka. So these animals go on. It's also a bit of a pest because it sometimes eats tubers like carrots and stuff. Not carrots, like sweet potatoes, and they also sometimes eat coconuts. Yes, the and sometimes destroys plants. So it's also a bit of a pest in some areas, and it's also a very dangerous animal. And if you meet one in the night, you might get injured these because of these quails. Sorry, not quails, squirrels. There's a myth that that says that these guys shoot their quails. Actually, they don't. They don't shoot those quails. They erect those squirrels like this, and they uh, confront it towards you. And some if you get hit by one of it'll stay and it'll get separated from the body of the porcupine. So it's just that they don't shoot it. So if you're working at night in a rural area, you have high chance meeting this animal, and should evade it if you see one of them. And another one, a very common one, is the palm civet. Most probably you'll know this animal as the Kalavedda in Sinhala. I know it's very smelly animals and goes on urinating everywhere, and it also sometimes destroy, eat kitul. Some because of that, some people consider as a pest and disturbing animal. Well, this is also a wild animal that you can see in rural areas, a bit in cities too. So that makes a list of some animals, some mammal species. There are lots of mammal species in rural artificial habitats. So these are some. So if you have other questions, please direct them to the chat box. I suggest you do it quick. If you have questions, please direct them to the chat box, or you can ask them. So I think that's all for that's the only question that we have for today. So I'll give the one chance to ask a question, then we'll wind up the session. So it seems that there are no questions to you to ask. So I'll wind up this session for today. Oh, and there's one question called: are there any other species? There are lots of species of mammals. Actually, the reason is because mammals are more better adaptive than animals. Sorry, birds. The same reason why mammals are the dominant creatures in the world. Uh, so I guess that's all the questions we have for today, I guess. Please ask questions if you have quickly, because you have to wind up this session. So there's a question asking: are there any reptile species? Reptile species are very low because they are even their adaptation ability is even lower than that of birds, because they are primitive creatures. They have been on Earth for some time, and they have lower adapting ability, and plus they are not. Plus they have they are not what you call them. They can't make their body heat by themselves. So because sometimes cities are not the greatest place, because they have to sunbath in one place to heat up their bodies, and sometimes it may be roads and they'll just get squashed by vehicles. Because of this, reptile population is very low. But if you take reptiles, the most common is the uh, common Oriental garden lizard. It's the lizard species that you almost all of you have seen. Maybe the only lizard species too, because the reason is they're very low. They are the only adapting species for humans. I'll show you a picture. Wait a minute. I'll share screen and show you. So yeah, this is the. Can you see my screen? So I guess you can.
Yes, Anurag.
Okay. So this is the garden lizard. The Oriental Garden lizard. I'm pretty sure all of you have seen this. It's very common type of lizard. You can see them on branches, and yes, this is the also the one of the only types. There's only two types that you can commonly see in artificial habitats. It's one of them is the Oriental Garden lizard, and the other one is the green garden lizard. Wait a minute, I'll show you. Yeah, this is the other one. I'm pretty sure you have seen this one too. So yeah, that's the only two types that you can mainly see. You can see in artificial habitats. Others are very limited and they don't normally come in. You will only it's a very rare chance that you'll see another type of lizard species in an artificial habitat. Uh, and sometimes I'm pretty sure you've heard in news that crocodiles come to homes. Yeah, in near rural areas. So crocodile is also one of species that sometimes occasionally come to the habitat. So I guess that's it. That's all the questions you have for today. So I wind up the session for today now. So as I told you earlier, thank you for joining. So I hope you'll join our future meetings too. So you'll be able to see this recording of this meeting if you haven't attended this lecture. So
Thank you, Anuha.
yeah, thank you very much. So uh, so in the next week, our division manager Savith Archana will do endemic birds. So until then, so goodbye everyone.
Thank you, Anhas.
Yeah, thank you.